Duchess Satine Kryze of Mandalore stood against a history of bloodshed, defied the man she loved, and held strong to her pacifist ideals as the galaxy around her was engulfed in the flames of the Clone Wars. She has a unique story of courage, tragedy, and a legacy that changed Mandalorian history. Are these changes for the better or worse? Satine was born into Mandalorian nobility on Kalevala, a planet nearby Mandalore in the star system of the same name. This planet had long been the home of the noble clan Kryze. Her father, Adonai Kryze, was the Duke, and Satine had one sister, Bo-Katan. Growing up, Satine was all too aware of the endless clan feuds and civil wars. The Mandalorian people, as well as their capital planet, had suffered greatly by these constant internal struggles. Many Mandalorians were equally tired of it, and a reformist group began to emerge. Just a teenager, Satine became the leading voice of the new Mandalorian movement. This was a pacifist faction of Mandalorians that wanted to rebuild and strengthen their culture through peace, not war. Somewhat ironically, this new movement, composed of those tired of the infighting, sparked a new civil war, known simply as the Mandalorian Civil War. This war kicked off officially in BBY 42, even if the fires were lit some years before. Adonai saw how dangerous this could be for his outspoken daughter and sent her to Coruscant, the galaxy's capital planet, for a formal education and to get her out of harm's way. The war would claim Adonai as he stayed back to defend their family home. Satine, being his heir, inherited the Kryze family home as well as the title, Duchess of Kalevala. This also made her the official leader of the new Mandalorian faction. This only fueled the fire of the Civil War. In Legends, the events were largely similar in tone and importance. The conflict was known as the Great Clan Wars. The new Mandalorians are known as the True Mandalorians in this version, but the group trying to hold on to Mandalore's warrior ways is consistently Death Watch. Satine was able to convince enough of the clan chieftains that they had to stop killing each other if they wanted to thrive, and eventually brokered a shaky peace. A major consistency across both continuities was the role of the Jedi protecting Satine. Switching back to canon, we find the Galactic Republic assigning a pair of Jedi to safeguard this pacifist leader from her violent opposition: Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi. These skilled Jedi would spend every day for a year protecting Satine, never sure where they would be or what threats would present themselves. With so much time spent close together, especially with their emotions constantly dialed up with the stress of the situation, it's understandable that the young Kenobi and beautiful Duchess would develop strong feelings for each other. Because of the roles each had to play, they were never able to acknowledge their feelings, and both had to swallow their emotions for the good of the collective. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. Years later, Obi-Wan, the dutiful Jedi Master, would admit that if Satine asked him to, he would have left the Jedi Order to be with her. The reality of the situation did not allow for this romance to blossom. The Mandalorian Civil War was at an end, Death Watch was defeated, the survivors exiled. Satine, not even 20 years old, was made Mandalore, leader of the Mandalorian people, who had to now rebuild and reform their society. Satine rose to the challenge of her new position. The old capital of Mandalore, Keldabe, was a bombed-out ruin. She established a new capital in the domed city of Sundari. She had a memorial constructed in a place called Peace Park to honor all of the Mandalorians that died on both sides of the conflict. The carnage she saw during the war strengthened her pacifist ideals more than ever. She made changes to the very structure of Mandalorian government. Clan warfare was outlawed. Their traditional Mandalorian clan system was stripped of political power and influence. She actually relinquished portions of her own power to allow the people a more democratic government experience. She would be Mandalore, the ruler, but there would be a prime minister installed. The Council of Ministers under this prime minister had sway and influence in the decision-making process. They weren't simply advisors that she could overrule and ignore on a whim. By the time the Clone Wars was spreading throughout the galaxy, she had her people in a stable place. Her prime minister at this time was one of her closest advisors, Almec. We're going to do more on him in a little bit. The Mandalorian people thrived in their new way of life. It's not expressly stated, but I believe the Mandalorians' history as an exceptional warrior culture wasn't just about them being warriors. I believe the Mandalorian people have personal morality and pride in everything that would make them exceptional at whatever they put their efforts into. They made massive gains in economics, technology, and medical advancements under Satine's rule. This brought more Mandalorians to her side of things, no longer just wanting to avoid war, but also seeing how incredible they could be without all of their energy poured into fighting each other all the time. Up until now, Satine had kept Mandalore neutral, focusing on her people's survival against the chaos in the wider galaxy. Not everyone was thrilled with the new way of life, however. Death Watch regrouped in their exile and lurked in the shadows, waiting for an opening. A blow to Satine personally was when Bo-Katan left their family home to join up with Death Watch. These detractors either didn't see or didn't care about how well things were going for their people. They only saw the anti-war stance that Satine stood for as a betrayal to Mandalorian heritage. Satine was aware that this group was growing, but she refused to strike out at them, and did not want to risk reigniting the Civil War. Death Watch tried to make a point and bombed the war memorial Satine had constructed in Peace Park. This move did not get the response that they hoped, as Satine left the memorial in its ruined state, showing how pointless the violent act was. Satine gave a speech to her people with the line, "War is intolerable. The moment we committed to fighting, we already lost." Taking things out of universe just for a few seconds, we have a quote from Henry Gilroy, not related to Andor and Rogue One writer Tony Gilroy, but he is one of the creators of Satine. He says, "Throughout history, some of the most powerful figures like Gandhi and Dr. King were pacifists who literally changed the world by refusing to fight." Her character was supposed to be a bright light during a dark time, not just for Mandalore, but for the galaxy. I'd like to take things one step further and show that her example was something spectacular during the Clone Wars, showing that war was not the only option. In BBY 22, the Clone Wars break out. Satine wanted to keep Mandalore as a whole out of the conflict. They were still mending from their own civil war. Not only did Satine declare Mandalore neutral in the conflict, but she established the Council of Neutral Systems. She, and those who thought like her, recruited 1,500 star systems to their mission of non-involvement in the Clone Wars. The Republic thought the stance of neutrality was naive, and some even went as far to say that Mandalore was betraying them. The Separatists tried to spin the stance as a cover for them actually supporting the Republic. Dooku and his Separatists approached Death Watch. He thought getting this already opposing group on his side would secure some Mandalorian warriors and the resources of the Mandalorian system. Dooku enabled Death Watch to start striking out at Satine's regime in a terror campaign. He also started generating rumors stating that Satine was secretly raising an army for the Separatists, trying to get the Republic to strike. The Jedi Council, once again, would send Obi-Wan Kenobi to investigate. It had been 2 decades since the pair of them had to bury their feelings for each other. They met as equals, and those old emotions began stirring once again. They still stuck to their responsibilities, however. Satine was insulted at the accusations and denied, truthfully, any involvement with the Separatists. Obi-Wan was sent to simply ask questions, but once again found himself in the role of protector. He and Satine followed a trail of clues to Concordia and confirmed their fears. Death Watch was more powerful and more active than they had thought. They found Pre Vizsla was leading the Splinter faction, a betrayal as Satine appointed him governor of Concordia personally. Furthermore, Vizsla was in possession of the ancient Darksaber, a historic symbol of Mandalore rule. He made his intentions to overthrow Satine and rule the Mandalorians plain. The strikes against Satine by Death Watch and the Separatists took many shapes. They tried to kill her directly, undermine her rule, and discredit her entirely. All the while, Satine stayed true to her beliefs and kept her people out of the Clone Wars. Choosing to stay out of the war did not mean that the war didn't affect them. Trade routes were disrupted, supplies were routed for the war effort, and the Mandalorian people had to go without. Black markets sprang up around Mandalore, and people felt compelled to use them. Almec, the prime minister that I mentioned earlier, was actually enabling these black markets. He claimed it was to help the people, but he was also lining his pockets. Corruption began to spread throughout Satine's entire new government. Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano worked with Corky Kryze, Satine's nephew, to expose Almec. Though she was innocent of the scandal, a scandal like this under her watch put another crack in the foundation of her rule. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a constant source of support since the Council reunited them. He would help her with immediate and obvious physical threats, as well as speak to her character and her quality as a ruler in the Senate. Satine loved and respected Kenobi. She appreciated his support and his friendship. She knew they could be together if they traded their life of servitude, but respected him too much to ask that of him. BBY-19 brought the darkness of the Clone Wars over Mandalore the deepest that it had been. Death Watch made a new and even more dangerous ally. The former Sith Lord Maul used them to take control of Mandalore. Maul was building a power base for himself and relished the thought of striking a personal blow to his greatest nemesis, Kenobi. Maul sacrificed a portion of his Shadow Collective and then came in with Death Watch to restore order, toppling Satine's rule once and for all. She was arrested and discredited. Pre Vizsla declared himself Mandalore and promised a return to their old ways. Maul had no intention of letting Death Watch rule. He challenged Vizsla to single combat and defeated him. He then claimed the Darksaber in front of his own people. A splinter group from the splinter group formed at this point. Bo-Katan was against Mandalore leaving their warrior ways behind, but she did not want to go to war with her own people, or her sister, and she certainly did not want a non-Mandalorian to rule. Bo-Katan and some loyal followers broke Satine out of her imprisonment. Satine reached out to the most reliable person in her life, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Despite the Council's hesitation on getting involved, Kenobi rushed back to Mandalore to help. Maul's forces captured the two would-be lovers and enacted brutal revenge on Kenobi. Maul forced Kenobi to watch as he ran Satine through with the Darksaber. She died in Kenobi's arms. Her final words were, "I always will love you." Obi-Wan admitted that he loved her too. Satine died with a smile on her face, picturing a life that in another time could have been. Along with Satine's death, the dream of a new way of life for the Mandalorians died as well. From this point, Mandalore spiraled downward sharply. Maul ran the system with a puppet ruler, taking soldiers and resources for his own twisted plans. Another civil war broke out, the Mandalorians loyal to Maul and those who now swore allegiance to Bo-Katan. Many Mandalorians who disagreed with Satine's rule still felt loss and hatred about how things fell apart. Kenobi almost let himself go to anger and grief. He wanted to violently lash out at Maul. Maul's taunting him invited just that. Kenobi, a true Jedi, centered himself and let go of his fury. Falling to the dark side was no way to honor the woman that he loved. In the end, Duchess Satine Kryze was living proof that true courage is not found in battle, but in standing for what you believe in the face of any opposition. Her death marked the fall of Mandalore's brief age of hope. Her vision echoes throughout Mandalorian history. In her death, she's a beacon that ideals can outlive the people who carry them. Check out this transmission next for more crucial characters from the Star Wars universe.